And I knew that May was May Haldeman, but I was not allowed to say that.
And May was Elon's mother.
May is Elon's mother. And I was introduced to her as Light. And she was at my birth. And my mother on her deathbed was putting some of this together because my mother, her whole life, so my mom was a hustler, like J-Lo in the Hustle movie. My mom was a hustler who climbed that evil rank, but her whole life, she wasn't down with plotting the end of the world. She was bad, but that's where she drew the line. She said May Musk was at my birth very soon thereafter at the Kaiser Hospital in San Francisco, and May Musk named me Rosemary. My mother on her deathbed realized that
May Musk named you.
May Musk named me Rose Phillip. Queen Elizabeth, please.
Yeah.
Please, the story, I'm a grown-up now, and I'm not buying it. And my brain is integrating, and praise the Lord, and I'm healing, and things are integrating. And now the memories, I remember this story doesn't line up with that.
So let me just explain that to the audience. When many children growing up in the system, and most of our audience is keen to this, but there's some new people to the channel. When you grow up in this beast system, as she calls it, or the Brotherhood is the proper name, a lot of your memories, your brain is actually fractionized. They compartmentalize your brain. It's the MK Ultra is what a lot of people refer to it, but there's actually more distinctive programming depending on the giftings of the child and the different things. So what happens to survivors who come out of this is, after about 20 years of being free from it, your mind starts putting together the.
Okay.
I want to go back. So you're growing up. Your mother's a madam. You've met these people. You know about May now in retrospect. But what was it like growing up at that time? What sort of things did you see? And bring me through a little bit of progression in your age as you go on.
Okay. So I was approximately 13 years old. I was born in 1965. I was born in San Francisco, California, USA. I was approximately 13 years old, maybe 12, but I think 13. Hooker's Ball, San Francisco, California. For those of you that don't know what that is, it is what it sounds like. It is an illegal, elite, giant. It's a hooker's ball. I remember that Jerry Brown was supposed to be there, like an entourage went by.
Former governor of California.
Former governor. Now, I didn't see him, but I remember being like, oh, yeah, that's Jerry. Well,
we know the elites go to these things. So this would be
Linda
a ball where they've got all the women there, and the elites come in and have their way and probably do very perverted things.
Right. And this particular one was in the Civic Auditorium Center. There's many others held, and they got
the Civic Auditorium.
The Civic Auditorium, and it was a 3-level thing. And there was Meatloaf was playing. Meatloaf's a band. Let me sleep on it, baby.
Yeah.
Baby. Remember him? So Meatloaf was playing on one level. Whatever. They were just.
So you're there as a kid watching essentially this big orgy.
Yeah, it was a big orgy. It really was, and my mom, as bad as she was, didn't like to do cocaine in front of me. So she would ditch me, and I would just, roam around with whoever they assigned me to be with. I was excited to be there. I was happy to be there. I was so happy to be off on a family event with my mother because I was sick and a kid and messed up, and I didn't have the right guidelines. I mean, I knew in my heart sometimes I wanted to be a good person, but sometimes I wanted to arise to the occasion and please those people around me, So, but I always had something in my heart that told me it wasn't right.
Now, you had said, I believe in one of your videos, that, you were kind of like a servant in the system. You could explain that to me a little bit. How were you a servant?
Okay, so let me give a little bit of ground. So there was a movie that Brooke Shields was in. I think she was 11. She was a little girl called Pretty Baby. And she was a child growing up in a whorehouse. Well, it was kind of not exactly, because my mother kept lots of houses and, our home base was our home base. So, but there was a child growing up in a whorehouse, and they auctioned her off in Louisiana. And I remember my mother saw that movie, and her friends and her were doing coke one night. Said, "That's a great idea. The girls are getting big enough. You ought to do, you know." And that was like, okay. And she was high as a kite, and somebody was pushing her into it. Now, see, my mother. This is the part I don't understand. Okay, so I was supposed to be auctioned off at the Hookers Ball. I was scared because one of the girls that worked for my mom, Eleanor, I have a gorgeous picture of her riding white horses in front of the pyramids saying, come, Mary, we'll find you a sheik. I was like, as a little girl, I was like, no, I'm scared. I don't want to go. But I remember somebody saying I could get chopped up. Somebody said, no, Claire, don't, they might go to somebody, and, those Muslim guys, they're really rough with girls. The Zodiac killer was out. He was chopping up girls.
So let me just understand this for a second. So you're 13 years old. You're at this wonderful party, which you were looking forward to, but you were actually going to be auctioned off there. It's all the elites there, and this isn't that uncommon. And I'm not going to make any presumptions, but considering the lifestyle your mom is leading, she probably didn't need a young teenager around to take care of. So auctioning off and getting the money, being someone who is pursuant of money, obviously having multiple houses, as you mentioned, really being a go-getter. So as a kid, being sold off, and you're not being sold off at a young age, you're at an aware age.
Mm-hmm.
So did you know before you went to the ball that you were going to be sold off, or did you find out when you got there?
It fizzled out, and then it didn't happen.
Okay.
So I think my mother was being handled. And I can't remember who it was, but Thomas Richardson was in our lives, and he was, I guess, the handler.
Is that a name anyone should know?
How is it? Tom was the recruiter, I believe, for the CIA, for the hookers. I knew when I was a little girl hearing talk that Tom's parents were Nazis smuggled out of Germany. I knew that he, and everybody made fun of him, like he fell ass backwards into what he was doing. I think his parents were brought over here in Operation Paperclip.
Okay.
And Tom, like I was
but not a famous name. Okay, so let's just continue the story from where you were. Now, as a child, I want to get to the Elon stuff.
Okay.
Because that's the first video I saw of you, and you had known him as a child. And why don't you tell about that one particular experience that you made the documentary on your site about?
All right, but let me just close something.
Sure.
It was supposed to be auctioned at the Hookers Ball, and then all of a sudden it didn't happen, and I just went to the party, and the next thing I know, there's an arrangement and a meeting, and May comes and talks to me at a table with some other very important people. Now, it was arranged. I go be with her, but yet she asked my permission. So she was made out to be my hero, because all of a sudden now I'm not getting auctioned off to a creepy guy going to cut me up. Now I'm going to a nice white lady with a cute house. Get it? Now, you know what I mean? I felt
safe. You actually went to her house then?
Yes.
Okay.
But I didn't live with her.
She was a neighbor?
It's weird. They said everything was staged, because I look back now and go, that doesn't make any sense. So my aunt, one of my real blood aunties, lost her butt in Europe. They went and blew all their money in Europe for a couple years and came back broke. Everybody was mad at them because they blew a lot of money. And all of a sudden she's friends with May Musk and gets a new house, a cute little house right across the street. Well, May didn't live there yet. To me, the thing is that they owned that. They built that street in 1940. Of course, this was all planned before I was born. So I looked at some of the records, the city records. Okay, I get sent over to my auntie's, a meeting with May Musk. Somebody says, will you watch our kids? Well, will you watch my friend's kid while we go on a prison visit? And I go, oh, your kids? Because there was this lady, Imelda. I go, oh, your kids? Because I thought I was going to watch everybody's kids together, a big pile, because sometimes people dumped all the children on me at one time. And that's how I ended up being a nanny. I play guitar and love them. So she said, no, this kid's special. He's coming from Africa. I thought he was going to be a little black retarded kid. Excuse me. But I was like, okay, a special little kid from Africa.
Well, and this is in that time, those are, yes.
Sorry, that's the language. We were so politically incorrect.
Look, I grew up in Compton in the early 70s. So I can relate.
So they asked me if I will. And then May comes, and it was a big deal. Living with a coked out mother, my hygiene wasn't great, and I had hookers hand-me-downs, okay? Even though we were rich as could be, you know what I mean? I was not cared for. I was hungry, it may have been a Playboy mansion, but there wasn't a door on the bathroom. So, who wants to go in there and take a shower? You know what I mean? So all of a sudden I was in a cute little place, and my aunt cleaned me up and got me some pretty clothes that weren't hooker hand-me-downs, Fredericks of Hollywood. Now it's normal, but it wasn't normal then to look like that. And and May met with me at the table. She said, and that's the first time I met Elon. And I'd like to tell you something that happened that day. I've never told anybody, okay? The first time I met Elon. So May and we met at the table, and she asked my permission, which I always think is part of them getting me in bondage, because I agreed. Even though I was a child, even though I was procured, I agreed. And
they always ask permission.
Do they? She always did. And nobody in my life ever did. So that's different. I remember that. Coming to him. So the first time I met him, and then they sent me off to hang out with him. And he was in my aunt's house. So my aunt loses her butt. All of a sudden she gets this cute little house on Penny Lane. And, Napa's a pretty prestigious little place. And then I go off with the little boy and the women, and I call him, I can't tell you what I call him. Actually, there's a cuss word in it. But I go off with the little boy, and we're playing, and he's skipping around like little guys do. He was tiny as a 2-year-old, tiny. He's skipping around doing little skips like when a deer's born, little kids skip and do little things. And he came over to the window, and he was looking at something out the window, and the sun was coming in the window. And I got down on my hands and knees, and he was trying to say something to me. I was like, what do you see, honey? What do you, I thought it was a bug or in the window or something, a bug, or he's pointing. And I got right down there with him. His eyes were black. His eyes were black. And I was like, that's not normal. Like for a minute, they turned black. And I remember that fear in your soul and bones. So I remember that, and I've never told anybody that happened.
Wow.
Then
and it's funny, we've been seeing, the acting pedotus with black eyes and stuff like that, like the pupils looking black. People are starting to catch on to these things. The eyes are the windows to the soul.
And they weren't always black, but they were black when they should have not been black. The sun was coming in the window.
Mm-hmm.
And my first clue. So now I did, I asked Jesus in my heart when I was 5 years old once. A babysitter led me in a little prayer. But, but I didn't even know the word blasphemy, but I could feel something going on sometimes with them. Like I was already afraid. My aunt told me, don't piss them off, please them, do anything they say.
You just said something really interesting, which brings a whole new light, and I use that word advisedly, to this story. You said these little prayers, and they might not have meant much to you at that time, but you actually said prayers to God beforehand. So it sounds to me like his hand of protection has been on you, although you were exposed to a lot of stuff. Look, you didn't get auctioned off. You didn't get that, you started to get better clothes, and things started happening. And so, okay, let's go back to where you were. I just wanted to make that comment that it sounds like the hand of protection was upon you.
It was. God was, huh? He always had me. And, if I would have known it was going to be okay. I mean, he told us it was going to be okay. He told us, fear not. Like Tiffany told me 365 times or something. Why didn't I believe him? Because I was so afraid my whole life. And now telling the truth, excuse me, but I have a little less fear. You know, I feel better than I've ever felt on that fear level. It's almost gone. When I should be panicking, like worried about a drone hitting me in the brain any minute. Jesus, the faith and the fear level have flipped. So she asked me, now this is a trip too, the permission thing. So then May, who called herself Light, and I've never called her May to her face. Never.
Just
I never
Light.
called her Light, only Light. And like, I wouldn't live to see the next day if I ever did that. Like, do not, under penalty, do not ever say her real name. And I wasn't supposed to know her real name because she was in the Helter Skelter book. My aunt had a copy, and there were plenty of copies at thrift stores for 10, 20 years, and now they're not there.
So she was actually mentioned, she was the May in Charles Manson's book.
Yes, but you can't find that book. It's been reprint. There's reprints that say first edition, but they're not the one I saw for the first 10 years.
Okay.
So there's reprints, and they don't say second edition. They say first edition, but there's a picture of May missing. So, okay, I was so she asked me if I would babysit, and we just called it babysitting. And this was all done under, the language has changed. Like I look back now, they use the word slaves. They use the word, don't. They use the word slaves. But for this, the language must be babysitting. I am the babysitter. So I never use that language on myself. Okay. She asked me if I would babysit while she went to see Charlie Manson. I always thought that was strange that she would tell me that right out. Why would she tell me who she was going to see? We all knew who Charlie Manson was. I always thought that was weird that she disclosed that. You know what? But that was part of sabotaging me, because if I ever shared what I was doing, people cut me off right now and went, oh, you're a Manson. Oh, and they got the heck away from me. Because there's something wrong sometimes. I get it. I'm socially awkward. But once I said Manson, I was cut off. Church people disrespect me. If I shared I was trying to leave that, nobody, that they just kept it at Hooker's daughter and a Manson.
So the social safety network that's supposed to exist was never there for you.
No. It was there for them to do what they wanted.
And just to be clear, when you were asked to babysit, it was because you were essentially a slave.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. And those are the words everybody else used, but not me. And so, but I want to share those words that they have.
That's very important, because you were a slave to the system at this point.
Yes. So I was at my aunt's and happy to be there. Again, May Musk is my hero. And I'm watching this little boy, and I'm told things like he's the chosen one, whatever that means. And so I was babysitting him, and May was going to, I don't know, I watched him a few different times. She didn't do like a bunch of things at once. She'd do one thing at a time. She would go take van loads of televisions to the prisons. Oh no, the battery is low. See, she would take van loads of televisions to the prisons. And I said, why is she doing that? And they said, she's creating prisoner armies, which is not something I could ever fit in a sentence in my life. And I said, why is she doing that? And they said, she's buying future chaos, creating prisoner armies. And
that seems to be playing out right now.
Right. And the lady and the lady that's telling me all this, she is the grandmother of the Santeria, and she's the mother of the prisoner armies. And so now we're 3-4 generations. We're a few generations into those prisoners. They're having babies on the system. They're having they got the shot callers in the prison. They go out, they run the drugs. So I saw a Rogan show where he talked about the Charlie Manson CIA connection, and now I realize there's documentation. So this is panning out.
Let's go back to that time when you were babysitting him and tell me what happened there.
Okay, I got to get a battery. I was babysitting him, and May had a lot of ancient artifacts and stuff. He didn't have any normal toys, and he got into his mother's trunk. I always called it her African trunk because she told me she's from Africa, and there was these little rock statues in there, like little, action figures. And he would set him up in a certain way, like a little Stonehenge on his bed, and his room was dark. It's always dark in there. And even though his room faced the street, it was like blackout curtain on that side, so he couldn't see out. And I was the house almost across the street. And he set him up in a certain way. And when a little kid's sneaking and you still see that they're sneaking and they're trying to be sneaky and you think it's cute. You know what I mean? They're trying to hide something, but they keep a cookie. He's kind of being like that happy, but it was wicked. And he said, call me Moon. I said, Moon, come play with my friends. And he's all excited. And I knew something weird was going on in there. And there was wind and energy. And I peeked in the door. I was scared, man. I peeked in the door and something was wrong in there. And it was like, there was something happening. I don't know the language to describe it, but
And how old would he be at this point in time?
By the record, he would be 7 or 8. But he was
7 or 8.
2-year-old, like a baby that just learned how to walk. So later I would wonder and doubt myself, is he one of his grandfather's lab experiments? Because I go, is he human? I asked my aunt. She's like, I don't know. Those Illuminati. Okay, he opened up something, a portal, a Stargate, whatever. But he was excited and he was jumping up and down. And
so he was able to open up a Stargate in his room.
Whatever you want to call it. It was a different dimension.
Yeah, a portal. Well, portal would be the actual name.
And I've been so embarrassed to say it out loud that everybody would laugh at me or lock me up. I only told my aunt.
So tell me what happened. Something's not right. Something's scary in that room. Describe what you see and what happens.
I went to the edge of the doorway and I peeked in there, and I was afraid just to peek. And there was something happening in there, like a sci-fi movie. And there was something, he set him up like a little Stonehenge on his bed. And he was tiny, like I told you, so tiny. And he was jumping up and down and he was saying, Moon, come play with my friends. Okay. That right there says he knew exactly what he was doing. It wasn't like he accidentally opened a portal and didn't know what he had friends. So I peeked in there and I was so scared. I'm embarrassed to tell this. It's so ridiculously weird. And he was being lifted and he was starting to go. He was being lifted and he was being lifted and was being sucked in. I know this sounds ridiculous, but my aunt told me don't let nothing happen to that effing little kid. And normally I would never let anything happen to a child that was watching. I would run between them and a pit bull. And I said, but the way she said it, I said, why? And she goes, he's going to rule the world someday. And I'm like, what? Him? What do you mean? Why? And she said, don't you know nothing? They're the Illuminati. She would always do that to me. But she'd say, don't let nothing happen to him. He's going to rule the world someday. And I was like, that kid? So I grabbed his little arm and I got sucked in. I got sucked into, it's like we went up and then we went down. And it was dark in there, but it was glowing. And I can only tell you that when I remember my peripheral vision because I was afraid to look at it, because when you're a little kid and you look at the cartoons and there's a bad boogeyman in the Scooby-Doo and you see its glowing eyes, it's like, don't look at his eyes, he'll get you. And I remember that whole, oh, if you don't look at their eyes, they can't get you. And I was being sucked in and sucked down, and I had his little arm. And it was weird because there was no bottom. And there were these creatures in there. And they were giant, and they were semi-shaped like humans. They were glorious. They weren't like Smeagol's or any creepy little demon dudes. They were like beautiful, ancient creatures that moved in a different time. And they were giant. And they had a different head. There was a bird head and a cat head and a jackal head. And I would compare them, because I'm not super educated, to Egyptian type of things, to the types of things May had little artifacts of. I'm not from that region, but
this also describes angels and devils in the book of Revelation. With multiple heads, different animals pointing different ways.
The angels have many faces.
Look at the guards of the gates of the Garden of Eden, right?
Yeah.
Even alone, that's what sounds like what you're describing.
And they were beautiful, but terrifying. They weren't on my side. I'm on Team Jesus. And but I was told not to say that name over there. And by my aunt,
because they would flee.
My aunt told me never say that name over there. They don't want to hear Jack Black about your Jesus. And I said, because I remember when I got saved, I wanted to go save everybody. And she's like, don't you say that name over there. She said,
okay, well, let's finish the story, and then I want to go to your conversion and how you got saved.
Okay. So we're coming down in there. One of them grabbed me by the throat. And I closed my eyes, and I had him. And I was tiny, like a little rag doll compared to it. And it was holding me up like that. And I cried out. I felt like I couldn't talk. And I cried out, Jesus, save me. And it stopped, and we flew back. And we flew out of there, and I still had him. I had his little arm. And we flew back, and we rolled out of his room and out of the hallway and into the living room. And if you've ever fallen off a merry-go-round and you woo, and you stop yourself, and I stopped, and we grabbed the ground, and I was I just felt dizzy, and I looked up at him, and he looked up at me, and we're on the ground, we're looking at a bug, and he looked up at me, and he goes, Moon, why are you not like my friends? And I was looking at him what the hell do I say? Excuse me. I was
that's probably appropriate considering what you saw.
My friends. And I said, well, it's scary in your room, Elon. It's dark. Well, they started calling him Elon later. They switched his name. And I remember the difference. So he tried to feed me to his friends, and he knew exactly what he was doing because he called me to come play with his friends. Those things and that. And I said Revelation 10, but I think it's Revelation 9. But I think maybe he's the demon from the Apollo from Revelation 10. I think maybe he's a clone.
Well, we don't know. We don't know. But eventually things will be made clear on that.
Yes. I don't want to be a railing accusation.
There's no doubt that he has an important part to play in what is happening in history right now. I personally think he's just more on the technology side, to be honest.
Okay.
That's just my thought. I don't know. And I want to be clear. I don't know. But
right, I don't want to just make accusations either.
Very brilliant on the technology side, and who knows? Maybe he'll be the inventor of the mark, right?
That's another thing. Can I share that? I was told about him.
Sure.
Okay, after he did that, opening the portal thing, I didn't tell what he did. And then I asked one of my the head mother of the Santeria, and I think she's the head mother of those people at our southern borders, they're calling them in. Okay, they paid for this a long time ago. But I said, is he the Antichrist? And she didn't blink. She said, no. but he will present the mark. And when you see him do that, the stage will be set.
She said that?
She said that. The stage will be set for the Antichrist to step forward. So August 28th, 2020, Elon Musk presented the Neuralink.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is the mark of the beast the image of the beast to be worshipped? Are they the same thing? And if that was true, would that make him the false prophet? And and if that was true, wouldn't that be a trick of the devil to give us a false prophet who's an atheist, rock star, supermodel, girlfriends drive sports cars and tunnels around rocket ships? Boy, that's one tricky false prophet.
There's lots of theories, and people, because of his stature in the world, people are going to be thinking a lot of different things about him. But the fact is we don't know at this point. God has not revealed anything conclusively to us.
I mean, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. You know those stories where there's the guy with the pentagram and the holy water, and he's like, yeah, you sure you can control the demon? Didn't work out.